You've got something in these articles. Every time I read them, I gain 10 pounds.
I want to call the meeting to order of May 18th at 3:31 p.m. The first item is the roll call.
Evelyn, absent. Joe,
Here.
Amy,
Here.
Carolyn, here. Phil,
Here,
Carol, here. Kevin is absent.
Okay, which have 5 members, so we have a quorum. Third item on the agenda is amendments and approval of the agenda. We have a request to add agenda item to the new business. It would be under item Roman numeral X, the item D, splash pad update. So I need to have a motion to add that to the agenda.
I'll second it.
Carolyn moved, Carol second. So we'll add that under, as I say, Roman numeral X, new business, item D, splash pad update. Item 4, the statement of compliance. Do I need to read this or anything?
Don't we have to vote
I was
on
gonna
that?
say, Joe, don't we need to vote for
Oh, I'm
that?
sorry,
For
I'm
those
sorry.
that-
I'm sorry. Remember now,
He's moving this thing along already.
That's good.
well, also it's been about a year since I read it. So, anyway, we have a motion to approve the amended agenda. And a second, so all those in favor, you have to call the.
I have to call the roll.
She has to call the roll. I'm sorry, you have to kind of correct me as we go along.
That's okay. Joe,
Yes,
Amy,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Phil,
yes,
and Carol. Yes.
as you can see, you all, at the end of this meeting, you all appreciate how well Evelyn does. Okay, now, what about the statement of compliance? Do I have to, I just read it. Statement of compliance. This meeting using electronic communications is subject to IC 5-14-1.5-3.5. And therefore, no final action will be taken at this meeting on the prohibited subject matters listed in section 3.5F of the statute. Item 5. Public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public comment on items that are not on the agenda?
No hands raised.
I don't see anybody here or on Zoom, right, John? Okay, we'll move on. Item 6, the approval of the April 20th, 2022 meeting minutes. Pages 1 through 6 of your agenda.
I'll move we approve that April 2022 meeting minutes.
A motion and a second, so we read the, we have to take a vote here. Okay?
Carol,
I was absent. So.
oh, abstain. Joe,
Yes,
Amy,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
and Phil.
motion passes. Item 7, approval of the April 2022 non-reverting claims on page 7.
I move we approve the non-reverting claims for April 2022.
second,
Motion and a second. I'll make a real quick comment. If you have not been out to see the Commons building at Garth Farm Park, you need to. It was great. That was money well spent.
Yeah, it was.
All right, call the roll on that motion, Jay.
Phil, Carol,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and Carolyn. Yes.
Item 8, approval of the April 2022 credit card charges on pages 8 and 9.
I move we approve the April 2022 credit card charges. I second.
Any questions about any of those, anyone?
See Kelly going for help.
So we actually, yeah, we purchased, all of us used Kelly's cards, made Amazon purchases, so some of them with her name on there aren't,
I do have a question. Did any of the staff get fleas and ticks? Is that?
No, the spray's working well.
I see what you're saying though, Carolyn, the stand-up desk, that was her, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we have, so, I got a motion and a second, so we need to call a roll on
Carolyn,
Yes.
Phil,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Joe,
that. Yes.
and Amy.
Yes.
Item 9, which is this kind of item I really like, old business, none. That's great. Okay, item 10, the new business, A is the master plan draft, public input. Wayne Elliott is here, and going to give us a presentation on the latest version of the master plan. So Wayne, I'll give it over to you.
All right. I have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share my screen. Hope I don't mess anything up technology. I might do that.
We understand if you do.
There's another FE staff, it's an attendee on
Yes.
Zoom, who's liquor promoted to panelist.
Sure. Yeah, because she did a lot of work on the plan, so she should be able to answer questions that somebody has on that. Okay. Here we go. Turn this around. So I can see it. So yeah, I'm Lane Elliott. I'm a project manager with the Epley Institute for Parks and Public Lands at IU. And we are the consultant that work with working with you all in the department staff to create the master plan update for the years 2023 to 2028. So part of the process, the required part of the process is a public presentation of findings so we can get input and feedback from anybody who may be interested. For some logistics here, if you have a question, you're on Zoom, use the raise hand feature. We'll be watching that and then you can ask your question, try and answer it. Probably go smoother if we wait until the end to ask questions, but if you have something really burning, by all means, ask. I might answer it in the presentation if we wait till the end. If you have a comment and you're on Zoom, just put that comment in the chat pod. So we can record that, and put it in the plan document. Every question, comment that pops up today, we're going to put in the document. This is a public process, a public document, so we want to be transparent. Make sure we are recording all these things in the document. We're going to record everybody who's attending and participating in the meeting as well. So we have that all documented. If you're in the room and you have a question, obviously, just raise your hand. See you. The project, there's a project website. The most recent draft plan is on the project website, so anybody can access it. I know that we just sent that out recently. Actually, I have a paper copy of a slightly more updated version. I worked in some, if you want to pass that around and look at it. I worked in some something that on history. That's the only thing that's really given there, and we did a little bit of additional editing, so it's a little bit. But by the time we're done, we're going to have it laid out graphically. It's going to look really nice. This is really just kind of Word version printed. So, and that's what's on the website. And I'm not expecting anybody to go and grab that document and read through it while we're talking, but there's also a comment section on the website in the Contact Us tab. So we'll leave that comment section open through the end of the week, through the weekend. That way, anybody that wants to download that document, look through it, and then make a comment that they want included in the plan before we finalize it, they have the opportunity to do that. I'm going to go through this kind of fast, I think, hitting the high points, major themes, and not getting into the detail too much because that is all in the document. You have a chance to review that and send that feedback to us so we can include it If it necessitates any changes, then we'll be able to do that before we make the final. And then our hope is that we'll have all this wrapped up next week and send you a final version that the park board can adopt at June meeting. And here's my contact information as well. If anybody has any questions, they can email me, got the email here or call. The first question, what is master plan, right? It's a tool, a roadmap to guide park departments in making decisions and reaching long-range planning goals. That planning in the process reviews the system, shares information, identifies what might affect the system, and recommends strategic action that the department should take or plans to take over the next 5 years in Indiana. Some plans are longer, some are 10, but in Indiana, standard master plan is 5 years. Why do we do a master plan? One is to make sure that we're systematically and regularly reviewing the state of the park system for quality, for service, be very thoughtful and intentional about how to go about things. Also gives us a chance to regularly engage the public, making sure that we're taking into account what the public thinks and what taxpayers and citizens want or need from the park system. And in Indiana, it's required to have a master plan on file to apply for funding that's administered by the state. That includes federal funding that passes through the state, like land and water conservation funds, recreational trails program, those kinds of things. Indiana and some other states, not all, require that you have a plan on file. You can certainly go out and find funding from other sources that don't require a plan, but it's a competitive process, which grant funding is. It's going to put a lot of points in your column when you're looking at application for grant funding. So whether it's required or not, it's always good to keep a master plan on file. A little bit about us at the Institute. We are the outreach arm to the parks world for Indiana University. We do a lot of consulting. Here are a list of our recent master plans that we've worked on. We also do a lot of operational planning, facilities maintenance planning, training of all sorts, anything parks. We have a very large e-course suite. We do workshops and webinars. We host the World Parks Academy, the Great Lakes Park Training Institute, which is the oldest parks training conference. Just some of the other things that we do with the master plan. If we need it for parks, we do that. The process, we started back in October with research and data collection. Collected all the data we could from the department, went out and developed parks in person. Gathered all that information starting in October. Public engagement kicked up also in October. Surveys and stakeholders to use. I'll talk a bit more about those shortly. That went through January, and then we took all this data and all this feedback we got from the public, and we started our analysis and our needs assessment in January, and then in April, and all that led to the action plan, which is the meat of the plan. All the list of things that we say we're going to do over the next 5 years, with estimated costs, potential funding sources. It's when the thread comes out of the oven, that's the action plan. And then the final plan published, we expect it to be published next month. After we get the final feedback from everyone and making final changes, and we'll adopt it. Background information. This is the first part of our data collection. We get all kinds of information about demographics in the community, in the county, natural, historical, cultural, transportation, all that information, the Parks Department information, facility inventories, park board information, how's it organized, who's on it, etc. And then we go out and do our site condition assessments, which means we go out to the parks, look at everything, document everything we see. How many shelters are there? How many picnic tables are there? What's the shape of things? Does this need to be repaired? Does that need to be replaced? And document all that so we have a really good and accurate, up-to-date picture of the entire state of the park system. And along with that, we did an accessibility assessment. One new part of the Institute is the National Center on Accessibility, which does a lot of makes recommendations and assessments on park sites for accessibility, and helps them address any deficiencies they might have. So we did we normally would do what we call a desktop or a high level accessibility assessment, where we kind of do a visual inspection, know what we see, offer the standards that you're supposed to meet according to the ADA and best practices, and give you that overview accessibility report. Well, this time, at no additional cost, we did an enhanced accessibility review where we actually took out our measuring equipment, measured the heights of mirrors and changing tables and slopes of sidewalks and things like that, to get a really detailed look at the accessibility issues that exist throughout the park system. We did that concurrently with the site assessment. So when you read the report, they're kind of wrapped up together. Because we did them at the same time, and we also find that when you address a lot of accessibility issues, you address other issues that you care in terms of upgrades to the system. So we address current conditions. There are 5 facilities. 4 of them are real parks. Ferguson Nature Park is just the one that's open, not open really to the public, except by appointment, but it is managed by the department. The 2 greenways, Limestone, the newest one, Cars Farm Greenway. We made a new map of the park system throughout the county, and also each park. We had the IU geology maps for us, which you're welcome to keep and use. Put them on your website, distribute them if you want to. We'll look at some of those maps in a little bit. There's our new system map showing where all the parks and greenways are located throughout the county. We also took a look at the distance to recreation facilities for residents throughout the county. We broke this down using GIS data and census data by census tract and then by parcel within each census tract. In the first map over here on the left is all recreation sites, public and nonprofit, which would be Sycamore Land Trust in the county, and the distance that people who live in Chicago County are. The bluer your parcel, the farther away from the closest recreation facility. You can see if those are around the outside edges. Then with the second map, we took all the state forest and outdoor recreation sites out, so we can get a look at what we would consider a park, shelters and playgrounds, and traditional park. And again, the bluer your parcel, the farther away from the park. You can see obviously around the edges of the county, it is less populated, but it also is much farther distance for you to travel to get to the closest park. And everything is kind of clustered in the middle, and then of course on the west side of the county facilities, except for Flatwoods, that's the only one that's really not in the central region of the county. So when we're looking, the reason we do this is when we're looking at facilities potentially, we're looking at coverage so that more people have access to recreation facilities. When we did our site assessments, overall the parks are in good condition. There are some things that we noticed, and we noticed some of this. I Kelly, we're doing this right, and I know, but as a consultant, we have to look at this with neutrality, through fresh eyes as a third party. So we notice accessibility improvements that need to be made throughout the system, upgrading playgrounds, which is equipment and surface mostly. And again, some of those are underway. Karst Athletic Complex, which we'll talk about more about that a little bit later. Drainage and surface issues. The surface is much better than last time we did the master plan. The drainage is still an issue. Parking improvements at the Karst Farm Park. A lot of gravel parking lots that could be upgraded. Invasive species control. It's noticeable that invasive species are not just in the parks, but in the county in general. We don't address those issues in the traffic. Environmental harm. And then improving directional signage. And again, that was back in November, so anything that's been accomplished since then, some of those things have been addressed. We did a detailed accessibility review again. We measured everything noted in quite a bit of detail, and there's an accessibility report in the document that lists all of our recommendations our observations and recommendations in each part and being way addressed. So one of the things that we have started to do, and anybody who works with accessibility done more recently, is talk about things in terms of universal access or universal design. It's kind of, I guess, traditional or the way we used to think about accessibility is making things more accessible for people with disabilities, but we want to make things more accessible for everybody. So we'll talk about universal design. And so the picture that I have here to kind of illustrate that is, it's out at Flatwoods. It's the path from the shelter area out to the drone zone. And you can see it's kind of muddy. There's large gauge gravel, the bridge doesn't have handrails or anything, it's kind of narrow. So you can imagine trying to get a wheelchair out to the drone zone. But when we think about it in universal terms, it might be a parent pushing a stroller trying to get out there too. So it's not just people with disabilities who need improved access to everybody. And once you improve access for people with disabilities, you really improve the experience for everybody. So it's very important for us. Some of the areas that we noted specifically throughout the system, routes like this one, routes to the athletic fields at Karst, routes to basketball courts at Flatwoods, and other places. They don't have routes with grass in a lot of places. Places the routes are there, but they're not considered accessible because the surfacing is not for mobility device. Parking areas, we just talked about that at Karst. Making sure we have enough accessible parking, make sure we have enough accessible van parking, making sure that the signage is appropriate everywhere. Restrooms, most restrooms are in pretty good shape. There's a lot of little things that could be addressed and probably pretty easily. The only, I think, problem area, well, Flatwoods, but that's being replaced. But there's one bathroom at Karst that was too far away from the walls. Otherwise, it's things like mirrors are too high. Changing tables are a little bit too high. Grab bars are a little bit too far away from where they're supposed to be. Light switches are too high. Things like that could be easily fixed, but they're prevalent throughout the parks. Playgrounds, again, equipment, making sure that there's enough accessible equipment, surfacing is appropriate so that people with mobility device or stroller can get to the equipment. And then shelters, which are mostly in good shape. What we noticed at shelters was a lot of amenities like grills don't have enough clear space around them so that someone can get a wheelchair all the way around it. A lot of the tables, there may not be enough accessible table at each shelter. They may be arranged in a way that they're not accessible, even if they are technically accessible. Some of them are chained down, so you can't move them and make them accessible. They need to move. Some places, food bar, maybe it's too high, or there's an electrical outlet above the food bar, which is too high to be considered accessible. Little things like that. Most of the shelters are in good shape. There are certainly some upgrades that we made. And those are really the major themes throughout the accessibility report. There are also other little recommendations that we made. Public engagement is the next part. Stakeholder interviews. So we did six group interviews with stakeholders. And the stakeholders were representatives of groups in the community that were identified by the department staff. User groups, youth sports groups, schools, other government agencies, people who are invested in the park system. We had some in person, we had some on Zoom, we did record everybody who was there and all the comments that we made, just like we're doing today. We asked a series of open-ended questions to facilitate discussion. There really were yes, no questions. Talk and tell us what they thought about the park system. And then once we got that, we recorded all that, we and deciphered it, coded it, organized it, and so we could notice some themes that were coming out of the conversations. And those themes are that there are positive overall impressions. That's the first thing of the park system and the department and the staff. People like the state of the parks for the most part in the county. But some things that could be better, improving communications and brand identity. Talked about that in the last master plan, a couple of that again this year, but I think it's improved that a lot of people just don't know that there are two departments in the county who get confused and they're the same and they don't know whose facility belongs to who. So there's some communication improvements that can be made. Improving access and equity, again, we talked about that, our accessibility assessment. Some additional programming to be offered. Improving the Karst Athletic Facility, obviously that's a big one. And there was a desire for an indoor facility. It's a very expensive prospect, but that's what people said. No judgment here on our part, just reporting what people said.
Indoor athletic or indoor for up to meal?
Multi-purpose, because I think some basketball court can be used for other things. That's what the facility. And then there was an emphasis on maintaining current parks and growing the trails network, as opposed to purchasing and creating new parks, right? Except for maybe where they're needed. There were several comments about purchasing land as it becomes available, requiring land that's not purchased to be donated, and not necessarily developing it, but saving it for conservation purposes and having the inventory in the future in case the need comes up to develop new park before land gets too expensive. We also in the housing market getting very expensive right now. So sooner you can acquire it, the less expensive. So we did surveys as well. We did 2 surveys, a random sample, which means we generated a randomly selected list of households throughout the county, sent them a postcard, inviting them to take the survey. We had 239 of those completed surveys. The other was a convenience survey, which means anybody can take it. It was posted on the website, on the Facebook page, there was a press release in the HT asking people to come and take it. And the reason we do both of those, that random sample survey is considered valid, because it's not, it's just a random group of people who take it. In theory, completely representative of the residents of the county. The convenience survey, since it's open to anybody, tends to be taken more by people who are highly engaged. Our users are going to take the convenience survey more because they're more interested in it. Sometimes it goes the other direction, people get opposed to something, jump in. But that does skew the results a little bit, paints a probably rosier picture. But it's important because those people are users of the park, you want to get their opinion. So we do both of those so we can really compare and have both of those kind of looks at the survey data. So from the survey data, let's see right there, that question, are you aware that Monroe County Parks and Recreation and Bloomington Parks are separate? In the random, the statistically valid survey, about half said no. People who are more park users in the convenience survey, still 27% said they didn't know. And so once we push those together, that's about a third of the people at the county. If we took the survey, you might say they didn't know that they were separate. Which kind of goes back to that brand identity issue that was covered in the stakeholder interviews. So we asked what facilities are you using? At least 50% of the people in the random sample survey said that they used Karst Farm Park in the last year at least once, or visited it, and 32% said they were on the limestone, and 20% said they were on the Karst Farm. Those are the top 3 in terms of usage, at least one time. Satisfaction, limestone Greenway had the highest satisfaction. We asked people what condition do you think this facility is in. 92% of limestone Greenway people who said they used limestone Greenway said that it was in excellent or good condition. So that's pretty good ratings. You know, the park system is pretty highly thought of by people who use it. Everything seems to be, for the most part, in usage. People are happy. When it comes to programming, we ask people, have you or members of your household used any programs or attended any programs? The total there is about 34% surveys that they have. Of those people we asked, you know, what are the ones you like the most, basically, or how do you rate these particular kinds of programs? Public events, festivals, and picnics, 85% said that they were either very extremely or very satisfied with those programs, nature programs, youth sports, adult programs, day trips, and the garden programs are right up the top 5. And some additional data we found in the survey, questions that we asked people what were your most important funding priorities. The question was, if you have $100, how do you allocate Maintaining the existing parks and trails is at the top. Conservation efforts and habitat management, which also came up a lot of stakeholder meetings. It's become much more important. I know the department is taking that much more seriously now as well. That's new. It didn't rate really very high, I don't think, in the survey in 2018. Now it's the #2 funding priority for the survey. And then renovating existing parks and trails. Recreation programs to add, farmers market, also #1 4 years ago. Public event, more public events and festivals, and then more nature programs. Facilities to add or increase restrooms and trails. It was probably pretty universal throughout. Park departments everywhere, more restrooms and more trails. And the benefits of parks, we asked people what they thought of that. Improving physical health and fitness, improving mental health and reducing stress, and then providing access to outdoor nature for the top answers to that question. There are lots of other questions too, but there's sort of the highlights. So this takes us to our needs assessment, where we blend our data and our public feedback that we've got through surveys and the interviews. Do a level, what we call level of service analysis, where we look at trends and current levels of service throughout the country and see how our department stacks up. And then once we push all that together, then we analyze it, what everybody's saying, what the data is saying, and that informs our goals and our action plan. So in our level, we talked about data collection, we talked about stakeholder engagement, level of service. There are a couple of different organizations that we get data from. Trends in recreation in the country, that's Trust Republic Land and National Recreation Parks. They have benchmarking standards. It's not really a, we should have this, it's a here's what communities that are similar to yours, they have grouped in different ways, have in their community. So you can look and see where we are versus where the average department is. See, you know, we match that up with what people give us as public feedback. We have a match. Just quickly, a couple of data points here. Number of parks. We looked at Monroe County, what the department offers. 4 parks. We coupled that with the cities, so we get a better picture of the entire recreation system in the county, because most people in the county do this. So the 34 parks, our current level of residents per park in the county is 4,109. The benchmark that NRPA says is 31. One additional park is. That's not saying against saying we should do this, it's saying to get closer to the benchmark, here's what you can do. But you also have to weigh that against what your community wants, budget, and staffing, and all those things. It's really just a look at numbers, not yet. Acres of parks is 504 acres within the Monroe County system, which you had moved in its 2774. Monroe County level of service, that's acres, 2,000 residents, 16.2. The benchmark is about half of that. So adding more acres of parks would get us closer to that benchmark again. Don't have to do that, but get us closer to the standard. The trails and greenways, just over 19 miles of trails and greenways in the county. Adding in the city, it's 54 miles. The benchmark is 26. As a whole in the county, we're well over that, but seven Monroe County Department, which is where that benchmark really compares. Then adding a little bit more trails gets closer. I know that is actually underway. So some other things from the level of service analysis. We also look at amenities, facilities, down to basketball courts, shelters, golf courses. All those different amenities, facilities, programs as well. Programs we offer compared to what the typical or average community offers. So that said, indoor recreation centers could be added to the system. and also more health and wellness classes, safety training, store programs. Yes, not a recommendation yet, just the numbers to see what they say. We also know that there are a lot of recreation providers in Monroe County, so there's a lot of coverage already of this kind of stuff. So what we should be doing strategically is finding the niches and the gaps for the county to fill for county residents. We've got obviously City of Bloomington, IU, Monroe County Y, Boys and Girls Club, local schools, lots of other groups that offer recreation services in the county. So we also think there's no real need at this time to add a large outdoor recreation facility, even though there's no parks really on the east side. There are national forests, state forests, like so there's recreation over there, just not call it traditional park. Some other things we found, and these are some recommendations now, in themes, not too much detail, but improving accessibility and equity, renovating the Karst athletic facility, athletic fields, continuing to expand the trails network, controlling invasive species, and improving the communications and marketing gaps that we found in the system through the needs analysis. In the map here, speaking of accessibility and equity, we did a little analysis on the number of people who with disabilities, and we organized that. We went into the Census Bureau, we pulled data into GIS and pulled data, and we have a map here of the number of people within the census tract who are disabled. You can see they're sort of around the outside, mostly around the outside edges of the county, where I'm sure it's cheaper to live. But they're also farther from that cluster of parks that happens to be in the middle. So this isn't saying that we need to build parks in the blue areas, but maybe we need to be creative and be thinking about how we can get people from those areas into our parks, whether it's additional transportation, things like that. All right, the big one, and this is a big number. It's not very pretty. We're talking about the Karst Athletic Complex, the needs at that site to completely renovate all the fields, which is drainage, irrigation, synthetic surfacing, lighting, all that kind of stuff. To completely renovate that, and Kelly Whitmer did this, got these numbers for us, and they're from 2020, so they're actually going to be a little bit higher now. But the total, it comes to about $8 million. And I put that in there to be a little bit shocking to anybody looking at this, because I know that it's an issue. I'm a Cutters parent and coach for my 5-year-old team, and I know that we've had 4 of our 7 Saturdays canceled because. So we all know it's an issue, but this number for anybody who thinks it's an issue, and just why don't they just rebuild the field? This is why, right? It's supposed to be a little bit shocking to see what it's really going to take. So unless somebody walks in the door with a check for $8 million, it's not going to happen. It's going to take a lot of time. There's and it doesn't say I need one bite at a time. So that's the approach that we need to take with Karst. But I wanted to really illustrate and highlight the scale and the scope of what is needed to do that. So to get things kicked off in that regard, there is a Karst Athletic Complex Improvement Committee, and just the folks who are on it, their responsibility is to provide advice, recommendations, search for funding sources, and give a lot of input to the department about how to go about this rebuild over time. Right, the action plan. So all of this leads into the action plan. Like I said, the bread coming out of the oven. These are the things that we're going to do. So we set up a list, then we did it park by park and topic by topic, which are all listed on the right side. There are all the different facilities, system wide, and what we call building department capacity, which is programming, marketing, brand identity kind of stuff, to help the department function better. And then our future items, which are items that we may not accomplish or even start in the planning period, but they're on the radar. So we want to be thinking about them. We want to make sure to mention them, so when we get to do the update in 4 or 5 years, they're already documented. So when we set up our action plan, first thing we do is list the item that needs to be done. We give it a time frame. it was us as consultants working with the department to try and sort all this out and make sure everything was where it needed to be. Timeframe goes from ongoing all the way through long-term. And the planning period's 5 years. You might ask, why wouldn't we put a long-term, more than 7 years on there? Because we might start it, right? We might not finish it within 5 years, but we might start it. And again, we want it on the radar just in case we don't get it started for the next planning period. And so, you know, something might come up. Somebody might walk in the door and go check and say, rebuild the soccer field right now. And then we can do it. So we want to make sure it's all documented. And estimated costs, and then funding source, if we know that. And the funding sources that were identified for county general funds, the regular allocated budget, non-reverting, which is what you collect from fees and charges, basically. General obligation bonds, borrowed money, which you have to pay back, which is another way to do large capital projects. Donations, grants, and then public and private ventures. So as an example, I pulled pieces of a couple of the tables. There's about 8 pages of these tables, because you get into quite a bit of detail. So I just pulled some pieces so that you see examples of some of the things that need to be done system-wide. Right? This is things that need to be done in every park, basically, across the county. So create an invasive species plan. Time frame on that is immediate. It's in the works. Estimated cost, really nothing. This is staff trying to do it. We want to, if we want to renovate the playgrounds, all the playgrounds with ADA equipment and surfacing. That's a long-term project. This can take long, even though it's underway. About $400,000. The cost for that, we're going to pay for it through a combination of our general fund, non-reverting funds, probably bond issue, and donations. That's the identified funding source. So we're at Cars Farm Park. Again, this is only a sample of things at Cars Farm Park, including improving the quality of turf. That's an ongoing item, about $75,000 a year. To do that, and it comes out of the regular budget. Renovating the commons area, which is also underway. I know that it's immediate, so it's going to happen this year. About $15,000 is the estimated cost, and so on. So every park, every category that we set up has this table. The solving section. They're in the plan. Again, look at the plan, read it. You've got the rest of the week to kind of scan through it and see if you see anything that you want to comment on. If you do, please go to that comment page on the project website and leave us a comment or ask a question. If you ask a question, I'll answer it. If you want to leave a comment, then we'll record it. So to get a little bit more detailed, these are sort of the main things in each park that we noticed, or major items that we noticed need to be taken care of or will be taken care of. At the Cars Farm Park, the athletic complex, obviously a big deal. Accessibility improvements, playground replacement, and then upgrading lighting and drainage throughout the park, the dog park. At Flatwoods, the restroom and associated utilities and plumbing and stuff are being placed with ADA compliant, which is great. Will Detmer Park, fishing pond remediation, and Jackson Creek Park accessibility improvements, including the route, parking lots, shelter, and the playground, and then improving the trails. Other areas in the greenways are in great shape. I mean, physically, they're nothing wrong with them. Maybe some amenities could be added, if that's probably what's the case. So the focus is really on extending the network. Feldsville, adding an extension south on Limestone, and looking for opportunities to expand it further. Priority areas for the department, creating an invasive species plan, improving the website and other communication methods for the brand identity issue, creating GIS-based maps. We did make new paper maps based on GIS data. They're flat, they're not interactive, but improve marketing, and then looking for additional opportunities for sponsors and partners to provide programming, provide services. that's it. So I'm ready for questions you might have, if you want to leave comment. Feel free to give feedback and comment. If you can't think of any questions now, which if we want later tonight, go on the project website, which is right here on roadmasterplan.com. And we there. Question will answer it.
And the plan that's on the website is the most up to date.
Yes, yeah. It's the one that I passed around. There are very few changes from the one that we distributed just a few days ago, but there are some.
I can send it via email.
Was there analysis of, like our level of staffing, given the amount of acres, trails, et cetera, we manage?
Yeah, I didn't include that in here, but there is a benchmarking analysis. We compared Monroe with other similar communities, Vigo County, LaPorte County, Elkhart County, County in Michigan.
Is there a recommendation associated with that?
Not necessarily, not from us. That depends on how well the department functions and what Kelly would have a better handle on that than we would. Look at the numbers, we can compare it to, like we did with the level of service, we can compare standards in other communities and see where it lines up. But every community is different, so it's hard to pin down exactly what we should do. It's easier to look at what the average is and compare.
If I remember right on the benchmark analysis, I think we were somewhere in the middle as far as staff.
I believe so.
I vaguely remembered it existing, but I couldn't hold it together.
Yeah,
And I couldn't remember if there was a recommendation.
We compared all that staffing, budgets, facilities, and needs programs to other communities. That's in addition to the level of service that I talked about. That's more of a national standard. Benchmarking was really more about regional communities that we could find that were very similar to Monroe County. So we had criteria for that, which were counties with universities and large cities in the middle that have their own departments. So it really looked like Monroe County. The NRPA and the Trust Republic Plan numbers don't necessarily take those kinds of details into account. They use population or by other methods, but they don't know about. They don't have that ability to really do the digging and the research to find out what communities are really close to Monroe. Having university.
I did have one other thing. I have a correction on page 22.
Okay.
I'm listed as treasurer and I'm actually secretary. There isn't a treasurer.
Okay.
So I wrote that. I wrote that. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll get that next. Yes.
So, when you do all these comparisons, you talk about times funding comes from grants and from donations and such. How does this department compare with other things? Should we be getting more grants? Are we better than other places maybe?
I think again, probably right in the middle. It depends on what you're applying for grants for and what sources you have. We didn't know necessarily who had a master plan on file, so that might make a difference, especially in Indiana where it's required. So that does open up doors and a lot more funding, $100,000 funding that you could apply for. I think probably right in the middle from what we can see. At least other communities that we looked at. I think there's probably an opportunity to go get more grants, especially from the city. But you know, be specific about what you want to apply for, and which one pay for with them out.
And the staff to manage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody online have a comment or question? All right.
Yeah, I'll make a comment, not to report what Amy said. Thank you, Lane, for not only the presentation, but the amounts of legwork that goes into developing this plan is extensive. And I think from our perspective, I can't even imagine putting this comprehensive report together and how much time that would take. So well worth the partnership, in my opinion.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
This one is particularly important to me, because I live here. So, like I said, I'm a Cutters.
Yeah, I saw you typing away on the public comment.
So you said-
I play soccer, so yeah.
Through Monday, Lane, is that when?
Yeah, through Monday. We'll shut up the public comment.
Okay.
on Monday, so we can get it wrapped up.
Thank you.
And of course, if you all, the park board has any additional feedback to it's your plan, so. We need to hear that, so we can be perfect.
Last month, there was a question about whether it needed to go to DNR for review prior to our approval, or not. Did that get situated?
I asked the question of DNR and he said either way works.
Oh, okay. That's good.
It's not required at that point. He's already seen, the first part of it back in January. He did that, submitted a draft plan. It didn't include like the action plan and the needs analysis, but included everything else. So he's had some look at it. But he said if we want to send it to for review before we adopt it, we'll do that.
Lane, one more thing. Do you need the name? I just want to ask this before people hop off the meeting for the presentation. Do you need the names of the participants that are
Yes.
outside of the panel?
Yes.
Okay.
The only attendee is Sharon Wilson.
Okay, and then. Gotcha.
Christie's with that.
Yeah, and if anybody put a comment in the chat, I don't know if you haven't set this down. but-
I think these were maybe.
Just,
Oh, okay.
just.
I leave my card here for everybody to. So if you have any other questions or want to talk or email, well, do that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should be able to-
Green arrow.
Green arrow on that.
Green arrow.
Green arrow.
There we go. I'm under pressure. Yeah.
Well, with that, we'll move on to the next item of the new business. The equipment request 2023, pages 10 through 16. I suspect this is John.
Yeah, and I will do my best to tap into my inner Kelly Whitmer to decipher these items. I can't. No, so on page 10, what we've got is an email that was sent out, our board and then the board of commissioners. More just a notification of what we would likely be requesting in the way of equipment and for the 2023 budget. And so what we're looking at is 2 Ferris mowers that are in need of replacement. And then the John Deere Gator that we have one currently, so it's not getting replaced. We've just identified the need for an additional Gator. So the park board, as far as the park board is concerned, just knowing that if nothing is purchased through a non-reverting account, these are things that we're going to be requesting out of county general during the budget hearings because they are pieces of equipment that we need. That said, the park board can certainly discuss and consider funding some of these items. So Kelly and I and Andy as well have talked about this. And our recommendation likely would be to consider moving forward with the purchase of the John Deere Gator before the budget requests are made. And there are a couple reasons for that. First and foremost, we've got one on hold right now at this price.
But you only hold it until we made up our minds tonight.
Right.
Otherwise, he's gonna pawn it off to somebody else.
So the quote for the Gator is on page 16. And like Andy said, they are waiting to hear from us whether or not we'd like to purchase these. My understanding is that we were lucky that they had one in stock.
And he didn't want to give it to me, and I said, I'm at this park board meeting tonight, can you at least hold it till then for me? He goes, no, that's 2 weeks. I can't hold it. And then he called me back later that day and said that he would keep it in my name until. So we decided what we wanted. But yes, the only one he's gonna be getting all year, he thinks.
Yeah, so there's a chance that if it's not purchased now, we might not have an opportunity to acquire another one until quite a bit down the road. So that's to be considered. Another thing to consider is if the park board could commit to purchasing one of these items, it would certainly alleviate the need to request it in the county general budget, which I'm sure would be appreciated. So with that, open for discussion, any questions that anyone has.
Probably be intense, but this dealer program,
Oh, okay, so that was for,
That's for the mowers.
yeah, that is for the mowers. And then I think there's been some progress since the board packet was sent out on, you're referring to the buy board program.
yeah,
So I'm actually, I think Molly is sitting in on this meeting, but her and Kelly have been in conversation about the buy board program. Seems to be something that county legal is all right with us moving forward with and becoming I think we become a member.
Yeah, and then it just gets you the lowest price that Ferris will allow anybody to get. So, and as far as that goes, no matter where I would get quotes for, like, say, getting 3 quotes, they'd all 3 be the exact same quote. So it would technically
and
eliminate
you
the
can
need for
do
that.
that through a local dealer?
It's
or
through
where-
Richards.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, so I was just thinking about shipping, because I saw
No,
Texas, and I
it's
thought,
through
well, we're gonna
Richards.
ship this from Texas.
On page 15, quotation, it's small engine on these lower. What's the difference between the price and the net? Is that the benefit of belonging to this?
The buy board,
No, so that's on. Is that on?
yeah, so the difference
Oh, yeah.
on the
Yeah,
next page.
yeah.
17,000.
Yeah,
So it's a
yeah,
significant-
yeah.
Significant savings.
Yeah, it is.
Is significant savings, yes.
And when Kelly and I talked about it, hi, sorry, I just kind of jumped in. It's a free membership that's gonna end up saving us money, and we kind of equated it to the same thing that we do with Sourcewell and the playground equipment. So it seemed like a good thing.
Relatively new initiative. Buy board.
These are things that we're going to be using every year for the next 200,000 years.
Yeah.
Or as long as we exist. So it's what we're getting. It's hard. Why we set up the replacement schedule to start with.
One of the ones we're getting ready to hopefully replace has 2,000 hours on it after 4 years, so. The other one's just about there, it's about, it's in the high, like 18s, I think.
So John, tell me, break this down into what kind of action items you got there.
Yeah, so what our recommendation would be is to consider approval of the purchase for the John Deere Gator tonight. And then with the intention of Kelly and I requesting the expense of the mowers in the county general budget. And then as a fallback, we could appropriate that same amount in the 1178 account and then consider purchasing those internally through, you know, 1178.
Later.
Yeah, later, yes.
And a third item might be, to get board approval for us to join this buy board.
I do not think there's any approval needed for the buy board account. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's already done. Molly, I don't know if you could confirm that or not, but
I think I think the registration was complete before I even looked at it, and I said it was okay, so it got an approval of county legal.
So let's just talk about the gates, John Deere gate as the first item, right? Page 10 tells you a little paragraph there, why that's needed, what it's used for, and so forth. We used to use a golf cart for that, I think.
yeah, and I think we've gotten to the point point where there's so many different uses for the transportation that a golf cart
That,
doesn't accommodate more than it does.
and it's just one more different thing that we have to maintenance, whereas right now we already have 2 gators, we get another one, that it's 3 of the same gas filters, 3 same everything.
Is this coating equipment, is that where the lady wants to service it to?
Well, we do the service on it, but it's, what was it before? It's the John Deere dealer there. in Second Street. They just changed the name. Yeah, if anything major happened, we take it there too.
Okay, so staff's recommending the purchase of this John Deere gator. Here, any motion, Jim?
I make a motion that we purchase the John Deere gator.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
A second?
Motion second. Further discussion? Call the roll, okay?
Amy,
Yes.
Carolyn,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
and Joe.
Yes. So get that one that he's holding for you.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, thanks
No,
right now.
No, I told him to clean them up tonight, it's like, just drop it downstairs.
And as far as the Ferris mowers, mowers, you're going to put those in the county general request.
Correct, and that kind of is a decent segue into the next item.
Okay, good. So why don't we go to the next item?
Certainly.
Item C, 2023 county general budget draft. 17 through 19.
So first and foremost, you should note that, yes, this is just a draft. So no need for action from the board tonight. What it's looking like at this point is that the budgets will be submitted, I believe, the second week of July. So likely the board would be reviewing the budget tonight and approving it next week, or sorry, next month. Assuming there aren't any additional questions, then with the intention of submitting it before the July date, just because there wouldn't be enough time for the board to review again in July. So what we have on page 17 is just an overview of the increases that we are planning for the 2023 county general budget requests. On page 18 are explanations that coincide with each of those additional requests. So hopefully you've had a little bit of time to look through these. And there's a couple different ways that we can do it. We can go down the list one by one, or after review, we can discuss anything that sticks out. If there are any questions there. And then on page 19 is the 1178 projected appropriations. And so, as I had mentioned earlier, Joe, what we see here, like on equipment, for example, is with the increased cost out of 11 and the increased appropriation would be a fallback if the additional mower purchases weren't approved in county. So you're just kind of doing both at the same time. So I don't know if there's a preferred, does anybody have any questions about the budget or?
That was one thing that concerned me, was on the fuel and how much it's increased. You've got 361 here and it's 459 right now. I haven't noticed what it's going to be a month from now.
They do get a,
They don't pay that.
yeah, they
Yeah, I
get a,
know.
So, and actually what this, gosh, how long did we spend on this?
Yeah, I got the latest, of course, it's changing every day, fuel costs. And then I went through and done a very deep study of what we spent last year versus what we anticipate spending. And Kelly added a little bit more, anticipating it's going to go. So we felt comfortable with what we have, unless it goes up to $7 or $8 a gallon. Because we always do get it about 20-30 cents a gallon less than.
And Phil, just to add a little context to that, the comparisons on page 18 from the 242 to 361, for example, are our most recent purchases. So we've not actually purchased gas. We purchased in bulk, so it's been a while since
Yeah.
we've done it. So
I'm just concerned if we don't get shortfall.
yeah, I think it's a concern for.
Those.
So Greenway Professional Services, that's like Bluestone, yes?
Yeah, so a
Okay.
lot of the professional, what once was the professional services are now lumped in the contractual. The anomaly there is the Greenway Professional Services, and I think the intention is the Greenways are new, and it gives us a better understanding from year to year how much we're investing into the Greenways as far as management is concerned. It's beneficial to us certainly to keep that separate.
You don't have to explain this now unless it's the Monroe County stormwater dumpster regulations may increase dumpster costs. Is that because they're going to be required to be dumped more?
No, because they're requiring a cover on them now, so we're either gonna have to buy some huge contraption to cover our roll-off, or have to go to smaller 8 cubic yard
Okay.
things from Cruiser Disposal. Whatever it's called down the dump on the south side, and I think that's what we're gonna have to do. But I haven't actually talked to them about prices, just looked off the internet. When I talked to them on the phone now, it pretty much told me don't look at the internet prices, just talk to us. So
Okay, I was
I tried-
just curious.
tried
I
everything.
wasn't aware of what the regulations were.
I tried everything to keep a roll-off, because we've used them for like 10 years, and it's cheap, and it's really easy, they just come at it like a moment's notice, I can call them wherever, but I don't think it's gonna work out.
Which item over on page 17 includes the replacing soccer goal?
It's recreation supplies, so you can, if you see page, well, actually on page 18, the third item down, recreational supplies includes the cost of the soccer goal replacement. And then the additional 7,000 of the 37,000 is what we typically allocate for recreation supplies.
Yeah, I can see that, I'm trying to see it over page 17. where-
A record, it's just
Way
recreation
down right
supplies.
there. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so since we purchased them last year, it's actually only an increase in 5,000.
We actually got them. A week or so ago, and they're getting ready to, whenever we get a free chance, start selling them.
So this would be for additional, for next year. Yeah. Questions about the budget draft? It's good to me. It's not a very large increase, it's good.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of it is supplies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cost of doing business, yeah.
Sure.
And like I said, so don't need any action tonight, and as this may look a little bit different next month, I know we're notorious for showing this to the park board a little bit early, so things might progress a little bit, which that might reflect some changes in the June meeting, but more or less, this is what our plan is.
So I appreciate seeing it earlier.
Yeah,
That's always been a problem.
and I think every year Kelly gets a little bit better at detailing what it is specifically and why specifically we do this. Kudos to her.
Item D is the amended item we added to the agenda, splash pad. I think everybody received an email.
Yeah, this is
today about this. So John, why don't you talk to us about that?
Yeah, give me 1 second. So this all happened very fast, fortunate. So what we have in the email attachment that I sent out is a service agreement that the commissioners reviewed, and approved in the work session earlier this morning. It was approved contingent upon park board's approval. Last week, Kelly sent out an email notifying everybody that we had identified a crack. The water tank splash pad, which is impeccable timing, but nonetheless needs to be taken care of. The good news is that it sounds like it doesn't need replaced, and it can be repaired, which reduces the cost significantly. So requesting approval for, I know we don't have a hard copy, but what was in the email was a quote for $1,100 from American Rec Services. Here and splash pad. If you've got any questions, happy to answer, but would certainly appreciate it.
How quickly are they gonna be able to do it?
The plan is to be.
Friday.
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday.
Yeah, but we'll see. And then that was just me sending them pictures, that quote, and then kind of, they haven't actually seen it in person yet, so.
That is worth noting. Thank you. Randy. The quote is for $1,100. What was approved was a service agreement not to exceed an amount of $5,000. So that's actually what the park board would be approving. And we did that just to have a little buffer in case they show up and see something that's unexpected. We're hoping that's not the case, not necessarily expecting it, but certainly better to be safe than sorry.
What's the name of the company again?
It's American Rec Services, LLC.
And so that tank itself, it's either 3,000 or 3,500 gallon tank. And it's the splash pad, when we bought that, everything came from a company called Spears up in Roachdale, Indiana. They were the general contractors on it. The tank actually came from Vortex, a company called Vortex. And so I called them to actually find out who one of their dealer/install crews was, and this is who they put me in touch with. So they work with the Vortex products all the time.
What you're really asking the board to do is approve a service agreement for splash pad repairs
Right.
with American Rec Services LLC,
Yes, not to
not
exceed.
to exceed $5,000.
Got it.
So moved. So moved. Second. No question.
And as far as the other repairs, you know what caused the crack? Is it just?
No, and so what it is that it's a fiberglass tank. There's a fitting that goes into the glass. It's actually molded into the fiberglass, and our inline screws into that. And then the outflow that goes into the tank screws into that fitting in the fiberglass too. And then that fitting itself is cracked. A lot of times what they see is it's close to winter, it's in a big hole in the ground that fills up with water. Our tank's actually strapped to a concrete pad down in the ground with a table, and we leave it full like with 1,500 gallons in the winter. So it wasn't floating. I don't know exactly what it was, but something's going on out there. So it's 14 years old, so.
Wow. Doesn't seem possible, but okay.
It doesn't, but it is.
Well, let's go ahead and find out. Mechanism cracked and it wasn't $1,100 for forks. Well,
Yes.
We're just gonna take you out there, someone heavy.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this. Okay, why don't you call
And I
the
want to correct, motion was Joe, second was Bill.
I made the
Amy
motion.
made it, okay.
Using Joe's
When you
word.
said so moved. Okay. Okay, well. Carol. Yes. Joe.
Yes. On the agenda are the financial reports. You can see them all in your packets for each 20 all the way up to page 34. Any questions or anything? Okay, specifically need to talk about?
No, not really, and money for shelters, we're putting them we would be preserving even more once we finish, we get this splash pad. We kind of put things on hold until we get the splash pad fixed, and the new playground is open now, so we've opened 1 and 2 back up, so things are great. We balanced it a penny last month, so everything's good. I think Molly's mic's off. Or
Molly,
on.
Molly,
Hey, Tricia message.
can you mute your?
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
I didn't hear what you guys said. Did you have a question?
Treadmill,
You have some background noise. We're just asking you
Just
to
mute
mute.
yourself,
your
please.
mic was not muted.
Oh, sorry. I was getting in the car. That was the problem.
It's windshield wipers. That's what we're
Yep,
doing.
that's exactly what it is.
Exactly what it was. Okay, thank you.
I go, well, the noise.
Any
We're
other-
all dancing.
Any other comments on the financial report? Then we move to item 12, this will be your recreation for the staff report. First of all, recreation reports on page 35, human resources report on page 36.
I would just like to take a second on page 35 of the rec report to commend the rec staff for all their adjustments to our new rec desk platform. And the intention is for it to be easier in the future, but anytime you make a change, there are inevitably hiccups. So Beth, Autumn, and Matt, who is not here.
So, and just a comment, well, good job with all the garden plot rentals. Yeah.
Making it look easy.
And then we did a field walk with Cutters and park staff 2 weeks ago. I don't remember, but
Years ago.
anyway, with Cutters, yeah, it feels like Cutters has a new director of coaching. And a new executive director to be named, I guess.
Yeah,
So
currently,
new personnel with Cutters.
Oh.
And the director of coaching was out there and walked with us and was real nice and, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, he had taken the job the night before, I think, so he was in a bit of a thought, but.
So it looks like a lot of events on the schedule down there in the corner.
Yeah, so some smaller ones, we're starting to see some of the larger ones come back this year, which is good. A real interesting one that I'm kind of excited about, actually just had the first conversation this afternoon, is an event we're planning in August, partnering with the Monroe County Airport. So they're doing some construction work on the runway, and they're not going to be allowed to utilize the facility. So the airport director wants to take the opportunity to organize some sort of event where people can come in and I relate it to a touch-a-truck event with planes instead. We're thinking about incorporating and moving that into that. So details still to be planned, but I think that's.
Anything else on the staff report?
Well, I didn't put one in there. We were a little bit swamped between splash pad and playground all last week, but so I guess I kind of touch bases. That playground, we had a lot of snafus along the way, but everything got all hammered out on the construction end. We're still waiting for a piece. A piece got damaged by the installers while they were putting in drain tile, but they decided they told us they'd replace it free of charge, so that was fine. Then we had our crews in there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week, and then part of a crew in there on Saturday too. Monday didn't get much done. Yesterday we got a little bit done, and then today before the rain, we busted out some more gluing. Got one more main seam to glue down, then it's stretching and just finishing the dirt work around the outside. Will be open, so within the next week or so, we should have a playground again.
Great.
Gravers is out there right now working on putting a loft the garage doors and stuff up in the extension. We finally got room in there to be able to have that done now that all our playground stuff is on the playground instead of in a building, so.
That was gonna be my next question, so I guess.
Yeah, they called, I can't remember even when it was. I was like, well, just a couple more days and I can have you in there. But, so they snuck in just as soon as they could.
John, do I need to do something with this?
No, we don't need to sign it, there's just so you
Item 13 is public comment, and I think Penny Givens, Commissioner, has some public comment for us.
But Molly and John, I hope you'll weigh in on some stuff here, citing the situation. With somebody that wants to take down some trees. Molly, do you have anything?
Yeah, so there is, I'm sorry, you're gonna hear the windshield wipers. Along the Carts Farm Greenway, the adjacent property owner has sold some of the trees for sale, or he's contracted the trees, to be logged. There are 11 trees within the easement, which we've already, have, decided that he cannot take. But there are 14 trees up along the abandoned rail corridor that he's identified for sale. And so I guess I wanted to just get an idea from the Parks Board how you feel about him having those trees. Some of the considerations that went into saying no to the trees in the easement do not come into play here. It's not going to impact our fence. I don't think construction's that far along yet. So I think there are 14 trees. They're not low, and Andy can probably give you a better idea of where they are at, like along the trail, but they're pretty far removed from the trail and close to the property owner's fence.
So 14 trees in the easement,
11 trees.
and 11 trees in the easement,
14
and he's
on the
already
rail line.
been told no on those 11.
Yeah, so the 11 in the easement are for sure no, and it's the 14 along the abandoned rail corridor.
Well, would it be,
If I'm wrong, did the logging guy that day not say that if we couldn't drop some of those across the trail, he wasn't even probably gonna be interested in them?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
met with the logging guy a few weeks ago out on trail, and we told him that if he were to take those trees, we would want to see them like he would have to access them from the property owner's pasture, and we would want them to fall in pasture, not across the trail. The logger indicated that for some of them, it might not even be worth it then, because there would be more work into falling them to pasture side than trail side. So he could come back and say, I originally identified 14, but since I have to fall them pasture, I only want X amount.
So, stupid question perhaps, but these trees in the abandoned rail corridor, we own them?
That's a Molly question.
So we have a quit claim deed for that property. There's a 60-foot parcel. And so I do believe that we own the trees.
So no.
Yeah, if we own the trees, no.
And
And I mean, I guess I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate, not that I have an opinion on whether he should take the trees or not, but this is a contract that he's already signed, and this property owner is going to be, our neighbor on the trail for quite some time. So I don't know if you want to play that into factor, or
Is it part of a larger timber sale, or is
Yeah,
this?
this whole.
Yeah, it's,
property, and he told that guy that it was an easement situation, and instead of either one of them checking into the legal ramifications of taking somebody's trees, they just went ahead and did it, and then found out, oh, hey, they're on somebody else's land.
Yeah.
Anything he needs to fill over our trailers.
And that's,
is out.
I didn't know in general.
that's, our staff's.
If it's for two private landowners, that would basically be.
yeah,
Which-
that's what, they
So
charge the guy.
I'm a no, yeah.
People get, I'm sorry, people get away
away with that kind of stuff all the time. You build it and then you ask for permission. No, absolutely not. No.
I don't want to, I don't want to create bad feelings, but at the same time, like Andy said, these are,
Yeah.
And honestly, so I've dealt with Todd a lot out there as a landowner, and I'm not sure at this point that it's really gonna
Matters
change.
much.
Yeah, unfortunately, like,
Not gonna remember.
he's not friendly to me like he used to be anymore. I don't think much is gonna change that. So,
I think it's a no.
Okay, so no across, no? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think it's a unanimous from the board, it's no.
Okay, that works for me.
Small, I would like to share with you, it's a no from us as well, though we put it in
Yeah,
from the Parks Department, because we feel that you should have to say on this, but we also, well, first of all, for me, cutting down a tree, but the climate crisis going on is a no, but also it would be a nice buffer along the trail.
and would benefit him as also as a buffer.
Yeah, part of the problem is he's gonna have to return it.
Right, but
But
Yeah,
that's
but-
not, it's a
it's not his
problem.
money to take.
You jumped the gun.
Yeah.
Start with.
Well,
And thank you for.
rely on Andy.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
That's the one with him, and number two, has to fool with whatever fallout there is.
Yeah.
If he says no, no
But
for
certainly,
me.
if they want to drop over the trail, the chances of damaging the trail are so great.
even in the state that it is now, where it's just gravel,
Yeah.
will damage it. But the other thing was, they're still in the midst of applying for their permit and the roadway permit. I think there was a couple permits they had to get. And then
Well,
the guy had no idea when he could be there, correct?
I think that they already have a driveway permit. They applied for the logging permit about a week ago and it's just pending approval. I saw a copy of the contract for which the property owner signed for the timber sale. And it gives them a year to cut down the trees. So they have until January of 2023 to cut down the trees. So when I met the logger, on site, he was like, he had no idea when it could happen. And so I told him one of the big concerns would be it would be far more difficult to cut down the trees if the trail was open. And he still couldn't give me any idea of when he was going to get out there.
We have to actually close the trail down if they want to do that.
Yeah.
Just tell them no, that solves the problem.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul, thank you, Penny.
Yes,
Best correspondence from Westville River, Jackson Creek West Boundary Survey, page 37 and 38.
So that's just their finished survey. They did get it all completed out there. And
What's the
then,
status there on the tree?
so it was just one of the three that was on us, and Bluestone got that taken care of then. And then as far as the boundary line goes, I'm not sure, and all the issues with the neighbors stuff. Somebody put fence up in their backyard last weekend after all the survey marks were in there. It was the one yard that we took like the majority of their backyard with their survey, and then they fenced it off past the boundary markers. So Molly's been out to look at that and see what's going on there, but I'm not sure where she's at with that issue, but.
Yeah.
Molly.
So, I walked the property with Chris, who did the survey and took pictures. I'm in the process of comparing the deeds to make sure all the call marks are the same. Chris and I are pretty certain they are, but before we start addressing how to tell these property owners that maybe their property is not on actually their property, we just want to be 100% sure that we can back that up.
so the tree was lifted up and over the house without incident.
As far as I know.
All right, that's the last item. Anybody have anything else we need to discuss? Then I'd entertain a motion.
I will give that motion, let us adjourn.
We've had a motion, a second, and that's enough. Unanimously agreed.
5 o'clock.
At 5:01.
Good job.
I had 501.
501. That's the time.
Had Brian look at it the other day. Depending on, yeah, so I was reading it wrong, I was like, here, and I saw these other. Oh, yeah, the pacer and then
Yeah.
rotated, it makes it different.
It is last week.
I think most of the letters have to do more to do.